Okay, about 3 months ago, we do this episode, and we trashed the episode. It was not a good one. At some point during that episode, I said something along the lines of, "Oh, we figured it out." I was all confident and felt great that all of our cool, fancy scheduling tricks and whatever were going really well. And so I was like, "Oh yeah, we figured it out. Like this is how you're supposed to live. This is it. Like we're done." I'm glad we didn't release that because that was really stupid. And about 2 months ago, I get COVID and I'm basically, couch ridden for 2 weeks where I just watch TV and do nothing. And since then, for the last 2 months, I feel like I have gone in the complete opposite direction of feeling very confident and successful to the total polar opposite of that. And I keep trying to get back on track, and I keep trying to get back to where I was about 3 months ago when I was super confident, but I have failed. And I think you're in a similar place, at least with some things. And I guess we just want to talk about how to get back on track and how to be good again.
So I think the moral of the story is don't ever say stupid things like, "Oh, I've got it all figured out."
Yeah, I will not say that again.
So I'm not in as bad of a spot as you, but I did kind of have some stuff going on the past few months that really rattled me a little bit, I guess. And it just hasn't been as stable as I was previously. And then you just legitimately got COVID, and that seemed like it wrecked you pretty good.
There,
So
there's
okay.
been there's been plenty of other things that have come along. Like I've had some extremely stressful work stuff happening and other things that have kind of just
Right.
kept me down. And then was it last week or the week before was the whole Hurricane Ian. So there's just been this long
Yeah.
list of things that have just kept me in this place that I can't seem to get out of. But
Okay. So a mixed bag of reasons and excuses and whatever. But
mhm.
whatever. That is what it is. Let's figure out how to get out of the hole. So what is it that you think is the naive thinking here, which is how I would have thought long ago, is I suck. I got to use more willpower, but I failed again today. Maybe tomorrow me will do better, right? That's just a purely willpower equation of some stuff happened and I just can't
Right.
get back on the wagon. What do you think? Where do you start? What feels like is going wrong? Why
Okay.
can't
Well,
you just fire it up again?
that might be the stupid naive way of thinking, but that's kind of been exactly where I've been stuck. Every day for the last few months, I wake and I've had some good days, I've had some great days, but generally I keep just falling back to the same feeling of I just don't want to do anything. I just, it's like low key depression.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not feeling it. And I, I've noticed that it's almost like all my decisions on if I'm going to be, productive or disciplined today, it all depends on how I'm feeling that day. So if I feel like doing it, then I'll have a good day, but then the next day I'll wake up and I'm like I don't I don't want to do anything. So I don't. And it just seems to be on a day-to-day basis, which is totally different than what I had before. Um
So it's as if you have no momentum.
yes, absolutely zero momentum. I remember we had talked about we did an episode that was kind of like this before where you had your wedding and things got kind of screwed up for you and you were all out of whack.
Yeah.
We did an episode, I think it was called How to Unfunk Yourself. And I remember talking about how, when you're doing really well and building up that momentum or whatever, you kind of start to build this web of things where everything's kind of connected. Like you go to bed early so you can, wake up on time. And then you're exercising, and that makes you want to eat right and be healthy, and then that makes you, I don't know, go to sleep better or whatever. So you have all of these things that are connected, and you have this huge structure of habits and, I don't know, things you do just kind of naturally, and it just keeps you going. Well, when some kind of big event happens, you get really sick. It doesn't even have to be a big event. Sometimes you just lose it. It's like you have to build that whole thing over again, and you don't know where to start. Or you'll put up one string of web, you're like, oh, I should go to bed early today, because that's good. I remember doing that when I was doing great. So you go to bed early, but then you end up sleeping in the next day, and you're like, well, that didn't work. That sucks. And then you're like, oh, I'm supposed to eat healthy. So you eat one healthy meal, and then the next one comes along, and you just don't do anything, because you need everything to work together. And yeah, so that's what I've been doing, is all, do these half-ass attempts of doing, one tiny piece of the puzzle, and then that doesn't work, and then I try another one or whatever.
It's funny because we talked about that. That was us. And then here we are, all of these things, and yet are having trouble getting it going. So maybe we need to revisit that a little bit and try and refine some methods here.
Yeah.
So
agreed.
Here's the first idea I want to put out there. This is something that I've been thinking a lot and paying a lot of attention to, or I've been thinking a lot about this and paying a lot of attention to it, is I've said before, I've mentioned this a few times, that I really like having a fitness watch, because it gives me metrics into my body that are objective, and it's very hard to get those. You can weigh yourself and find out how much you weigh, and that's pretty much it. You can take your blood pressure, I guess, but it's really hard to know what your body is doing other than just how you feel. But with this, because it monitors my heart rate 24/7, you can actually get a lot of pretty interesting information out of your heart rate. You can look at the baseline heart rate. So if I wake up and my heart is roughly 50 beats per minute, that's pretty low for me, which is great. That implies that I'm very relaxed. If I wake up and it's 70, that is not very low. That implies that I am not relaxed. And my sympathetic nervous system, like the fight or flight, is very active. There's heart rate variability, which is how rigid your heartbeats are, like whether there's a lot of space in between them or whether they're very rhythmic. And it's a bit counterintuitive, but if your heartbeat is very rigid, where it's the variation between beats is low, then that also implies that you're stressed and you've got a lot, like your sympathetic nervous system is very active. Whereas if it's very fluid and some beats are far apart and some are close, that means you're much more relaxed. Anyway, there's all these metrics that you can look at, and you can look at them day to day, and you can see them graphed, and you can look at how that corresponds to what you do or how you're feeling, how well you slept, whether you drank alcohol or whether you went for a run, and so on. And by looking at all that stuff and really paying attention to it, because it's pretty fascinating to me. And I bought this watch pretty recently. This is a Forerunner that has some newer sensors, and it gives you better insights into heart rate variability, but it's pretty new. So there's not even that much out there that gives you good heart rate variability numbers and everything. But looking at that stuff, you start to realize that your body really genuinely is affected by the things you do. And it is the kind of thing that changes over time, in the sense that the fatigue can accumulate day to day, to where my resting heart rate might get higher and higher and higher every morning, where I'm becoming more and more stressed out as time goes on, and my heart rate variability gets lower and lower, and I'm just recovering very poorly from day to day. And it's just, sometimes fairly small things can really affect it. Like, just if I have some alcohol before bed, my heart rate variability goes way down and my sleep will be poor. And you can see that in the next morning. Like, my heart rate is 10 beats per minute higher than it would have been otherwise, just from having some alcohol. If I exercise too hard, you can see that show up. And then God forbid you get sick. If you get sick, I mean, those numbers just go off the chart. Terrible. Your stress levels are extremely high, and they stay high all throughout the night when they should be very, very low. So the point with all that is that it's interesting to see, and it kind of gives you this respect for your body and your nervous system in the sense that stuff really genuinely matters. And the idea that you can just sort of push through and buckle down actually doesn't really work. I started doing a lot more fitness stuff a couple months ago. I really wanted to do running, but I wanted to keep powerlifting. And so I was basically just doing 2-a-days and just thinking, this is hard, but I just got to do it because I want to be super tough. I want to, accomplish all these goals. And looking at all those numbers, the heart rate variability and whatnot, those just kept getting worse and worse throughout weeks to where I'm like killing myself. And I finally took some time off, 4 or 5 days off, and just everything comes back down over the course of days. And I wake up and I start feeling much better, and I can feel myself sleeping better. And then when I finally get back to it, I ran, the fastest 2-mile that I had ever run, just without even really putting forth that much effort. So that's my first idea here, is that sometimes you feel run down because you are genuinely run down and you genuinely have to recover, and pushing yourself to do stuff sometimes can make things worse. Now that's only part of it, because some of the things we're talking about are just habits, just you doing regular healthy things. But especially with getting COVID, and it sounds like you were pretty sick, that is going to mess you up pretty good for quite a while. And the only reasonable thing to do is to actually just dial things way back and recover from that. And I think it can be a big mistake trying to jump back on the wagon too early, because you're just going to make yourself worse.
Well, I think that was true definitely probably after a month or month and a half. But at this point, I don't think it's the COVID that's, I don't think it's still messing with me. I guess it could be, because I've been, apparently some people, it keeps, like, the fatigue doesn't go away for a long time.
Right.
But I don't think that's what it is for me now. At least I hope it isn't.
Well, if nothing else, at least kind of lay that piece of time to rest and say, all right, I was sick for 2 weeks at minimum. It probably really was more than that in terms of you needing to recover. So it's inappropriate to feel guilty about that piece of time, because the only reasonable thing to do then is to recover. So let's just kind of put that piece away and say, all right, that's not part of the guilt equation.
Yeah. And, I'm not feeling all that guilty about relaxing when I was really, really sick.
Yeah.
But at this point, I've, started to build habits that are all wrong.
Yeah.
I've screwed up all sense of sleep and diet and no exercise. And it's just, it's now on me, where it's just me screwing it all up. And I'm ready to not do that anymore. But I've been feeling ready to not do that anymore. But I just haven't. You know how okay, that's just a metaphor, so forget about your heart stuff. But there are days where you will wake up and you'll be just exhausted, like the whole day, right? And you can try to psych yourself out of it. You slap yourself in the face, whatever. Just wake up, or I'm just gonna try really hard to be awake, but it just doesn't work. But then say you get pushed into a large bucket of ice water. That wakes you up.
Mm-hmm.
That works, at least for a good amount of time. I think that I've just, like, for the last few weeks or months, I've been kind of slapping myself in the face and just trying to wake myself up, but it's not working. And in some cases, I think it's good to try a little bit at a time to try to get you back into the swing of things and get you, get that little bit of momentum going. But I think in this case, for me, I need the giant bucket of freezing cold ice water to wake me up. I need that external push to get me into everything again. So,
okay.
I'm ready for something like that.
Okay, well, what does that look like?
Okay, well, we talked about it a little bit. We want to jumpstart or restart all of our challenges with some twists. So, if you don't know, we did a bunch of these little challenges. Let's go through them real quick. One of them was to wake up at the same time every day for a month. The other one was to do pull-ups every day. The other one was to leave your phone plugged in, or you can't use your phone if your phone is unplugged.
Yeah.
And another one was to give something up for a month. And the other one was
2-minute challenge.
yeah, the 2-minute challenge where you do something for 2 minutes every single day. And I think that restarting all 5 of these and stating that I'm going to do this is sort of like the giant bucket of ice water for me, because this, I want to jump right back into everything and just wake me up and try to get it all back. I don't know if it'll work, but I think it will.
Okay.
I have
All right,
confidence that will, because it makes me feel a little uncomfortable and a little bit nervous to just jump right back into everything.
Yeah.
But it also kind of wakes me up and makes me excited to get back, and I think feels like a good thing.
Well, here's what's funny. So I'm super down in a weird way. So I've been using my phone too much. And I hate to say that because we talk so much about it and we've just really built identity around this idea of the phone is bad for you. And I've gone through these cycles before, but goddamn, it's just.
I mean, we're clearly hypocrites. Like,
right. Right.
We've made that clear, yeah.
Okay. It's embarrassing to even have to say, like, yeah, I've been wasting my time on my phone, but I have, and it sucks. Actually, now that I think about it, here's what happened. So I bought a new bed cooler, and for literally everyone who doesn't know what that means, it is this big thing, sort of like an air conditioner, that sits on the floor, and it has a little refrigeration unit in it, and it pumps cold water underneath the mattress, like through this big radiator sheet thing, and it cools your body down. And I had one, but it wasn't powerful enough. So I bought this even more powerful one. It was very expensive. And this sounds insane, but for some reason, just my body does not have the ability to cool itself at night. I mean, I'll just lay there and I'll be just radiating heat and sweating. So I bought this newer version, and it's amazing. It'll kill you if you want it to. I mean, you can crank it down to 50 degrees and it'll just freeze you solid. It's awesome. But it's because it's newer and fancier, it doesn't have a little battery powered remote like the last one. It only has a phone app. And so you have to operate it with the phone app, and it has timers, but I couldn't quite get them right, where some nights it would not be cold enough and other nights it would be just too cold based on, I guess, ambient air temperature or something. So I wound up just putting my phone near the bed thinking, well, I gotta have access to this app because it's the only way I can do it so that I can adjust this bed thingy. And that led me to sleeping with the phone, which I was in a really good state before that, thinking, I'm not using the phone much. It's not a big deal. So I have it there. So what? I'll just put it somewhere else after I wake up and only use it if I need to. But sure enough, given enough time, it just becomes this thing where it's like, I can't really sleep. Let me do some stupid stuff. And then I wake up and I don't really want to get out of bed yet. Let me grab the phone. That's what killed me. And I actually think that is what led pretty directly to my habits crumbling a bit over the past few weeks. I actually think that's what happened.
Yeah, it's these stupid innocent things that just pull you right back in. Yeah, I mean, I have to use my phone at work or for work, so it's always fair game.
Right.
I have to use my phone, so I can't totally say no to it. But yes, I've also been using my phone a lot and watching TV and watching tons of YouTube and all kinds of things.
So that was a bit of a tangent. I just had this realization of what went wrong for me. But here's what's funny about all the habits you listed off. None of those are hard things. You could argue maybe
Mm-mm.
doing pull-ups every morning is hard, but even that, it's just one set, so it's not that hard. But
Right.
all of that is actually pretty trivial stuff. Doing something for 2 minutes, that's easy. That's the point of it, is that it's super short and easy. Waking up at the same time is what your body wants to do anyway. That's your natural state. Uh, all of that stuff, like none of it is a hardship. But
Yeah.
at the same time, that's what you're viewing as the bucket of ice water.
Yeah, and I actually really think it'll work because I don't, it
Yeah.
just holds so many other things in place. Like when you wake up at the
Right.
same time every day, your schedule stays the same. That's what keeps throwing me off. I mean, I'll wake up early one day and then I'll sleep in the next day, and then I never feel good. Yeah.
To me, it feels like there's this feeling that I have where I call it control. That's kind of what it feels like to me. Where sometimes it just feels like I'm in control and I can, I eat what I think I ought to eat, and I do my exercise stuff, and I wake up when I think I ought to wake up, and I do all the things that I want myself to do. And it's not that hard, and I feel pretty good. And if somebody said, "Hey, you ought to wake up 15 minutes earlier," I go, "Okay, yeah, I'll make that change." Or, "Hey, this is better for you if you ate this instead of that." It's like, "All right, I'll eat that instead." Like, I just feel like I can do kind of whatever I need to do. It's not a big deal. Other times, I feel like I have zero control. And the test for that is I take a couple supplements. I take vitamin D, I take fish oil. That's pretty much it, actually. Vitamin C sometimes. Let's just say vitamin D and fish oil. Two really basic things you buy at the grocery store. And for whatever reason, I just feel like those are good things to take. And the difficulty of taking those is like zero. All you have to do is walk in the kitchen and just, take it with a glass of water. I'm in the kitchen 15 times a day. I'm already right there. But when I'm really just feeling rough, I don't do that. I'll go for 2 weeks and just not even do that simple thing, even though I know that I should and I
Mm-hmm.
want to. I just don't. Like, I just can't even make myself do this stupidly simple habit. And it's hard for me to really understand what's going on there, where I'm
I
in a state where I can just do pretty much anything I want, or I can do almost nothing that I want.
I think for me, I've seen this before in me. It's like I have this vendetta against my better self.
Yeah.
The good side of me. When I flip into this, I go full like self-destruct mode, and
Hmm.
I just want to destroy all progress I've ever made before. I mean, really.
Yeah. No, I
I
get it.
I won't lift a single weight because it's just I want to lose all muscle mass that I gained over the last, year or two or whatever. It's like, no, I want to destroy all progress I've made anywhere. I don't know where that comes from, why I think that way, but it's the same thing. I won't do a single healthy thing, you know. I know I should eat this piece of broccoli, but it'd be so easy and it even looks good, but no. I'm just going to grab it and throw it away and eat something else or not eat at all. I mean, it's like it's not healthy at all. And I don't know where
Yeah.
this mindset comes from, but it's like the complete opposite. It's a self-destruct mode. I don't know why I do it. And it's been around since as long as I can remember. But
Same for me, for sure.
every once in a while, I slip into this, and I would not take the vitamin D or fish oil or whatever,
Yep.
even if I wanted to, I'd just not do it because I want to, torture myself or something. It's not that extreme, but it really is like this vendetta. It's like doom scrolling. I love that
Right.
example because you don't want to keep doing it. You want to stop. You don't even enjoy it anymore. You want it to be over, but you keep doing it anyway. It's like I don't know what it is, but yeah.
Yeah, it's this almost self-hatred type of thing.
Yeah, I don't know why. But yes, that's a great example. The not taking the extremely easy pills to take or the supplements. It's just that's exactly what it's like. Now, I haven't been like that every day for the last few months, but
Right.
I've been bordering that.
That's and no, and I get that too. I will get there. I mean, the taking the vitamin D supplement or whatever is an example. I'll get that way with going to bed, where if I'm feeling good and healthy, it's 11:15 every night. Go to bed. That's the time I go to bed. Easy. That's what I want to do. If I'm in that I hate myself mode, it's 2:30. I don't care. I'm gonna
Right.
be up as late as I want.
Right.
It's like you said. It's almost like you're spiting yourself, hating that healthy, in control version of yourself.
Yeah. I'm just a couple days ago. I'm sitting, watching some YouTube videos, and it's like a Sunday night, so I got to go to work on Monday, and it's like 12:30. I'm thinking, okay, I should go to bed. I want to go to bed. I'm really tired. And then like 4 hours later, I'm like, fine, I'll just go to bed. It's like your brain says, well, it's 12:30, time to go to bed. And you're like, okay, I'll make it 4:30. Don't tell me what to do. I don't know.
Like surely psychology has some answer to this. To me,
Yeah,
I
I mean,
wonder if it's almost this form of escapism where
yeah,
you just don't even want to feel the weight of those things, or you're just defiant of any of that. Like, I'm gonna stay up super late tonight because I don't care and I don't even want to think about work at my job and all this responsibility stuff.
yeah. I I know absolutely nothing about this, but I remember hearing I think it was Freud or something. There was this theory that you have this, drive to live or will to live, but you also have this drive to die, or it's like this opposite thing. I don't know. I should look that up. I don't even know.
From what I understand, Freud was wrong about pretty much everything,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah. But it's just an interesting.
yeah, but he
Yeah,
got the conversation started, which is actually really key. So that's cool.
yeah. Maybe a little less hatred for Freud. Um,
Yeah.
okay, so how do we not hate ourselves and do bad things?
Yeah, how do we not hate ourselves and not do bad things? So here's a couple thoughts that I've had. I kind of think that if you look at the course of a day, starting from the moment you wake up to when you finally pass out, the the easiest moment to be in control is when you wake up. And it gets harder as the day goes on. So when you wake up,
Mm-hmm.
your mind, assuming you slept, or like your mind should be at its most restful point, right? Like the calmest is that moment when you're awake. And the longer time goes on, assuming you're not doing great, you're kind of in dumpster mode, uh, the alertness level will go up. That just happens naturally, which means adrenaline and cortisol and stuff. And that usually is accompanied by a lot of agitation and frustration and whatnot. So you tend to build into this kind of angry, irritated, unhappy with stuff mode as time goes on. And if you're really doing good and you're feeling healthy, then that stays pretty in control. Then you kind of know when to step away and you calm yourself down. And you're hopefully operating at a pretty good level. But if you're not, that can get pretty rough before too long. So I think the moment to try and take control is early. You try and get some things established the moment, or when you get up, when you're feeling calm, rather than at 2 a.m. when you're fried and angry and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know exactly what you ought to do, but I think that's the time to try to do it.
Well, I've definitely noticed one of the things that I keep doing is sleeping in. because I'm staying up, of course.
Right.
But the problem is that I sleep in until I need to get up and go to work. And I wake up, I'm frustrated that I slept in, and then I go to work for the entire day. I don't do a single thing for myself like my wonderful previous schedule allowed. And yeah, it sends me into that frustration immediately in the morning. So I want to solve that with the waking up at the same time. But
Yeah. I mean, that does really feel like the cornerstone habit is waking up at the right time. It's really tough if you're really out of whack to actually do that.
yeah,
Even getting up a few minutes before you're supposed to can be tough. But
yeah. So there was one day, I'm having this stretch of just days that suck and I hate everything. And then there's one day where I had woken up a little bit more earlier or something, and I wasn't really working on anything specific, but I was thinking about something, and I knew that I needed to write it down. It was sort of like this plan that I had. So it would have taken me a little bit to write out, but it was a pretty good idea, so I wanted to make sure that I wrote it down. And I got to get ready for work, and I'm about to leave, and I'm still feeling like that, really frustrated. I don't want to go to work. I don't want to work on stuff that I want to work on because, self-destructing or whatever. But
yeah.
right before I walk out the door, I'm like, fine, I'll just write it down, whatever. So I write it down. I start writing it, and I finish it, and I'm like, oh my God, that feels so good. That felt so good. It was like a clear glass of water that I hadn't had in so long. And it just, having to force myself to do something and then doing that thing that was hard was the most rewarding thing. I mean, obviously it was very simple and stupid,
Right.
but it was just, I don't know, it hit me. I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing? Why don't I just do this all the time? Why don't I do the things that I want to do?
Okay. Well,
I don't know what point I'm making. I'm just saying that.
no. There doesn't need to be a point because that is, I relate to that very much. Here's one thing that I think can happen that can make this sort of worse. I think part of that is this, escapism, almost wanting to push away doing things that are difficult. You're tuned for that quick gratification. There is a reason why using your phone too much and being on the internet and doom scrolling and whatnot like correlates so tightly with these episodes of just feeling crappy. You're really dialing your brain into that short, reward loop, dopamine hits, if you want to call it that or whatever, right? And trying to get yourself to do something that doesn't have an immediate payoff, that's a much lower energy state. Writing something out in a journal is a lot different than scrolling through Reddit. But even though it ends up being more rewarding, it's just like a part of your brain that you aren't using, and you're kind of hooked in that almost gambler mode. So it's a hard shift, and I think one thing that can make it worse, and I've felt this a lot, is, okay, I've been doing this running stuff, right? Every morning, 6 days a week, wake up, do some stuff, do a little bit of work, and then 10 o'clock, that's when I run. And what will happen is the program that I'm doing, some days are pretty tough, some days are pretty easy. But what will happen is on the tough days, I'll go for a run, and I might be feeling really good. Maybe I slept really well. I've had some pretty good recovery the past few days. I've eaten well. I don't know. The weather's nice. It's cool. I'm just feeling good. For whatever reason, things come together, and I'm like, man, I'm feeling good. And so I'll run really hard, and I'll run faster than I have before, which is awesome. And I get done, and I'm super tired, and I had to push really hard, but it feels good. And I'm happy that I did it, and it's rewarding. And just in general, I'm like, oh man, that was hard, but that was great. And then a few days pass, maybe I'm not sleeping as well, I'm not recovering as well, who knows what. Maybe it's just hotter outside, maybe I'm not as well hydrated. But I go out to do another hard run, and it's like I feel as if I have to do what I did before. My goal is to get better. So if I were to run slower than I did last time, that's a failure. that's bad. And
Mm-hmm.
again, back to that, what I was saying before, my body's not necessarily in the same place. That's just a real thing that really happens. And if you pay attention, you can actually measure that. But there's this pressure to do what I did before. And so maybe I go out and I run and I try to hit that same time or run faster, but my effort level is actually way higher because I'm just not in as good a condition, or maybe I haven't even fully recovered from the first time. And so I wind up running slower, and then I feel terrible because I worked even harder in terms of effort, but the result was the opposite of what I wanted. I feel like I'm going the wrong direction, and now I'm super frustrated and just unhappy with it, even though, I might have done better in a sense, and that I actually pushed myself harder than I did the first time. And so you fast forward a few more days and it's time to run hard again. And now I just really don't want to do it because last time sucked. And I feel this pressure of, oh, I need to go run as hard as I did that first time. Not really realizing that the reason I did so well is because I felt really great and all these things lined up to just that led to me feeling really great. So I'm not even starting from the same point of just going out for a run and winding up feeling good. I've got all this pressure. I've kept escalating the bar for myself. And now I just don't want to do it at all. And so maybe I skip that day. And then I'm like really feeling bad. And the next day I don't want to do it at all. And now I have, and this is I think really key, I have this feeling of now I'm not in control anymore. I'm not doing the program. I messed up. I'm off the wagon or on the wagon or whichever way it works. Can't remember which one is the bad one, being on the wagon or off the wagon.
I think off the wagon is bad. Right?
Yeah.
Fell off the wagon. That would be
right.
bad.
That's bad. Right. You didn't step off the wagon. You fell off. That's a bad thing.
Right.
Yeah. The wagon is, you want to be on the wagon.
You want to stay on the wagon.
I think Jerry Seinfeld did this whole bit about that where he gets it backwards. He's like, I know enough not to get on the wagon because the wagon's where the alcohol is. And that just has confused me ever since I saw that as a kid. I can't remember which one is which.
Okay. Well,
sorry. Anyway, I feel like I've fallen off the wagon. And what's extra stupid about that is that all of that is entirely predictable and pretty much exactly what you would expect to happen, given just the way you have to recover, the random chance of you feeling really good one day to the next, and so on. Like all that stuff, if you just step back and you looked at it objectively, maybe somebody else was doing it and you were analyzing their runs, you would just say, yeah, that makes sense. You did really well this day, not so well this day, but that's fairly expected. If that were a trend that went on for a month, that wouldn't be good, but that's totally within normal variation. So there's really nothing weird about that. But I have this narrative in my head where I'm doing bad, I'm upset. I do a run and I'm really happy about it, and then I do a run and I'm really upset about it. And there's nothing other than just the own narrative in my brain that causes me to feel that way, and it can lead to me falling off the wagon later in the week.
What's your solution?
I don't know.
Okay.
Well, okay. So no, I do. I've been learning this. It's funny because I've been lifting for a long time and I love lifting and I feel pretty comfortable with it, and it's hard, but I've learned a lot of lessons through it, and I feel like I have a pretty good relationship with that form of physical fitness. And for some reason, it just has taken me a lot of effort to just transfer some of that thinking towards running. Probably because running is pretty new to me and I'm doing a lot of inappropriate self-analysis with that of, oh, I'm a bad runner, I'm not made for this, or oh, maybe I'm really good. And there's way too much narrative in my head going on when I run, when I should just be running and just progressing like you would expect somebody. So I'm almost like hypersensitive about it mentally. But after having a little bit of time off and being a little more thoughtful and trying to be smarter, some of the things I've transferred over from the lifting philosophy is, one, I think anytime you go out, there's some range that you're going to operate within, and you have your max where you're going to go super try hard and give it absolute maximum effort, and then you kind of have your minimum we did this with the pull-up challenge, right? We set a minimum for how many pull-ups you want to do at a minimum, and that's the only number you really have to hit. If 5 pull-ups is your minimum number of pull-ups for any given day, then you jump on the bar, you do 5. If you're feeling good, you do more. If not, you're done, and there's nothing that you need to feel guilty about there. That's your minimum. So trying to transfer that idea into running has helped a lot. Thinking, okay, I'd love to run at this pace. That's my peak pace, but it's sort of rare that that happens, and hopefully that improves over time. But I got to respect the fact that that is, by definition, it's a peak. It's not sustainable. So I got to know that. And then I kind of have my minimum pace of, all right, for this type of run, for this long, for these intervals or whatever, I can run at this pace pretty comfortably, and that's my minimum. And so any given day I go out and I operate within that range, rather than thinking I did this once, so I got to do it every time. And just that alone is pretty freeing. And I think that idea is pretty important for other stuff too. Like if you want to do painting, of course you want to do amazing work and accomplish all this incredible stuff within the 1 hour that you dedicated to that art, like you did that one time, but that's completely unrealistic, especially if you're off the wagon.
So, well, running is pretty new to you, right?
Yeah.
You did not run before, so you just started doing this. So you're probably, your ego is, or I don't know, you're trying to figure out who you are as a runner, what it means to you, can you accomplish this,
Right.
where are your limits, whatever. So it's probably a much bigger deal to you right now than weightlifting is, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you've been with that for a long time, so if you have a bad, weight day, that's not a big deal because you've lived through it a million times. I know with, now I'm starting all of these oil paintings, or I'm still working on these single oil painting, but I've worked at my job for almost 6 years doing a totally different type of work. So I work in Photoshop at work. And at the beginning of that, when it was all new to me, I'd do these Photoshop paintings and they would just crush me. Like if one of them didn't turn out well, it was a complete failure. And it was like that for a good maybe 2 years, maybe 3. It still happens occasionally. But I'm at the point now pretty much where I know that I will solve the painting by the end of the week. I know that I can figure it out pretty much every time. My failures aren't going to be that bad or whatever. I've just been through it so many times. I don't freak out about it like I used to. And it's just kind of, I understand I will come out the other side and it'll be fine. But with the oil paintings or the single oil painting that I'm working on now, it's like I haven't done it in so long and I've done so few of these that I don't really know where I stand. I haven't been through this a bunch of times. It's new to me, just like running is for you. So I'm constantly trying to figure out, where I stand with that. And it is much more, there's so much more contrast in my feeling towards it. Whereas with the work stuff, it's whatever. Like, I know it'll be fine. So I wonder if that will improve because I'm sure it will improve as you go forward.
I'm sure that it will. And it helps me to just remind myself about that where, I think we mentioned this last time, but I was talking about, I think the Huberman podcast, and he was talking about how the mental effort around something can be really taxing. Just you thinking about doing something difficult is draining. You're even though it's just in your head, it's still fatiguing. You're still releasing those hormones and adrenaline and epinephrine and whatnot, or adrenaline and cortisol and those things, and that just taxes you. I started thinking about that a lot since then, just trying to observe that in myself and realizing that I'm spending so much effort not actually expending effort. I have today this happened. I have this run and I'm pretty rested up and it's a hard run and I'm thinking, okay, today I'm going to go really push hard. I'm supposed to run at 10, but I don't because I'm like, okay, well, maybe I should something. And I can feel the adrenaline building up. I start to pace around a lot and I just feel more agitated and excited in a way, but I'm just moving around a lot. And I didn't get out there until 11 when I was supposed to run at 10. And that's bad for 2 reasons. One, It's just hotter, and it's harder to run when it's hotter. But also, that's 1 hour of me being anxious and excited and moving around and being jittery and stuff. And that's just fatiguing. So I'm tired after an hour of thinking about running when I actually get out there to do the run. So it's dumb.
Mm-hmm.
And
One,
I bet that there's just a lot of that around, you right now trying to get back on the wagon to put some of these habits back. I bet part of what's draining is just thinking about that and feeling crappy about that. And, you wake up and you're angry and guilty and feeling all this stuff because I woke up right before work and I have to go to work. And you're actually just putting forth a lot of effort on just feeling bad.
mm-hmm. Well, okay. I remember when we were doing the pull-up challenge, I would do that same thing. I'd be like, oh, I don't want to do my pull-ups. Or if I do my pull-ups, they need to be really good. And so I'm pacing around, just trying to avoid it, but knowing that I have to do it.
Yeah.
And yeah, you do that exact same thing. So what I tried to start focusing on was getting that time frame smaller and smaller, to where as soon as I thought about doing it, I would just do it. That was my goal, is to shrink that time. And I stopped worrying about how many pull-ups I was doing, and the focus was more about killing that freak out time beforehand, or the resistance to do it. I just wanted to shrink that down to where it's just, oh, okay, I'll just do my pull-ups, as soon as you think about it.
Right.
So yeah,
I totally agree. Try and bring the freak out time down to as small as you can. And the other part of that too, I think that's really key, is for any of these habits, I really think that one of the most key things is that there is one point of decision that you make, not more than that. So with the pull-up thing, when we were doing that, the thing that really clicked for me is when I decided to do them when I got back from the dog walk. I mentioned this before, I think. But I get back from the dog walk. He's all situated. I open the back door, and it's sort of that half staircase thing where you walk up a little bit and you're in the house, or you walk down a little bit and you're in the basement, and that's where the pull-up bar is. And I decided that that's when I make the choice. I get back, open the door, and there's a literal fork in the road of I go back inside or I go down and do the pull-ups. And that's when I decide whether I'm doing them or not. And that happens every single day. I get that choice put in front of me. That was so much easier, because if you don't do it that way, if there isn't that single point of decision, then it's just this decision that's like sitting here in your brain all day long. Like, oh, I haven't done my pull-ups today. Should I do them right now? No. Let's do them in 10 minutes. And then 10 minutes later, should I do them now? Maybe a little bit. It's just this thing that weighs on your mind all the time. And as a procrastinator, that's pretty much the worst possible thing, because you never actually have to make the choice. You just decide between, do I do it right now or do I do it later? You're never choosing to not do it, even though ultimately that's what it can result in. So it's, in terms of mental overhead, it's just this constant thing. And I think for all of those habits, that is absolutely the opposite of what you want. You want one singular point. Make the choice. You either do it or don't. And if you don't, then you accept the consequences of not doing it. And if you do, then you do it. And you keep that freak out time to this tiny sliver of a moment as much as possible. And then you're not suffering from the procrastinating problem and that, decision weighing on your brain. And you're not sitting there freaking out about it, burning up all your energy just thinking about doing something hard.
Right.
And just while you're collecting your thoughts,
Something just hit my door. I think my dog hit the door.
Oh,
sorry, it threw me up. Continue.
Hope it's a dog. I think the minimum threshold thing is really important too. Like those three things I think fit together a lot. But if you go down there, or you jump on the pull-up bar thinking, I need to do 5, even though maybe my best was 11, right? 5 is my minimum, and that's all I got to do. And if you get done with 5 and you're like, I feel terrible, and you get off and you feel great about that. That was the deal.
Hmm.
I did 5. That's what I needed to do. Or if you get done with 5 and you're like, man, I feel amazing, this is easy, then you do more and maybe you hit 12. Then that's fantastic. But that also unloads a lot of that just mental overhead of even thinking about doing it, where you're not thinking about, I gotta hit 12 every time you jump in the pull-up bar. You're thinking, I need to do 5. That's the deal. And there's no guilt associated with doing 5. I already
Right.
decided that is my minimum. And I think those things add up to making that habit feel so much easier to handle.
And I think that's what I'm trying to go for right now. If I'm waking up around the same time,
Yeah.
then my mornings, I don't want to have this huge pressure of I need to get, 2 hours worth of work done before I go to work.
Right.
I just want to get started. I want to show up and then whatever I do, I'm going in the entry level and that's that.
Yeah.
One thought I had on, this whole self-destructive thing is that if if you're going around doing all of these things that hurt you almost, on purpose with this vengeance and, you, even if you want to do it, you still choose not to do it just out of spite for yourself. I think one reason that might be is that if you do the single thing that's right or that you should do or the right thing or whatever, as soon as you do that, you have to view yourself, through the lens of the person that's trying to do the right thing or the person that's, back on track. And once you do that, you see yourself as this, total failure. Whereas the vengeance evil one, as long as he stays there, he doesn't really ever have to think about the bigger picture. But if you do that one right thing, then your ego has to turn around. It has to flip and see this, where you're really at. And then you have to climb the ladder all the way back up to where you were before. So, we put that off for as long as we can because it's a painful thing.
It's like a denial thing. Like you don't
Yeah.
want to think about where you're at because that hurts. I remember when I was a teenager or late teens, kind of in college and just getting out of it, I had a lot of debt, like credit card debt.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know how much because I didn't want to look. And that just was so depressing. And so I just never checked, but there was just this awful thing in my gut. And then it took a while, but I don't remember what happened, but something finally motivated me to go, okay, let's figure this out. And it was a good amount. And I had one credit card that was interest rate of 30% or something horrifying, which personally I think that's pretty messed up. That's like loan shark prices for a teenager, which seems kind of messed up.
I don't know why you had that as a teenager, but
right. That seems kind of wrong. My credit limit was super high for a teenager. It was like $30,000 or something. It was insane. But all I had to do, not to talk finances, but I just looked at that and go, oh, well, I have another credit card that has a free transfer and 0% interest for the next year or two. So I just transferred it and it took, 20 minutes. And then suddenly I'm just not paying this 30% chunk of interest.
yeah.
It was like hundreds of dollars a month. And all I had to do was just look at it and go, okay, make that switch. And I mean, eventually I figured it out and got it paid down and everything, but I could have done that years before and been so much better off. It's totally irrational, but it's that feeling of as soon as I look, then I got to look at how much debt I have and I got to face the fact that this sucks and I don't really know what to do about it. And that's soul crushing. So I'm just not going to look. I think it's something similar there where you don't want to take your fish oil because as soon as you do, you got to think about all the other habits that you're not doing and
Right.
how you're had all these goals for your life that aren't happening and you're going to feel sad.
Didn't you put off your taxes this year and you got to do that tomorrow?
No, not tomorrow, by the weekend. And I did pay them. I just filed for an extension.
Okay.
And I will do it, and I don't want to. And yeah, I have been a little bit in denial about that. Problem is that, well, taxes are stupid.
We
Taxes
don't
suck.
have to talk about taxes.
You brought it up.
All right.
No,
Okay, so
that's a good example. I am avoiding that.
So, one thing, someone asked in the Discord like a long time ago, around the same time that the person commented for our last video. It was part of this big discussion or whatever. Somebody said, I'd be interested in hearing about, how Daniel was able to stay interested in art over so many years. Like when we were teaching ourselves, I taught myself art, you taught yourself software development. And it was a stretch of many years where I was, sticking with art, and I didn't lose focus or whatever. I just kind of stuck with it. And one thing, I was just thinking about it today, and I'm getting ready to do it again, like tonight. One thing that I did then that I think worked really, really well, that I'm about to start doing again, was I would print out, it's very simple. I would print out the next 3 months, like a calendar, just the next 3 months, and I would plan those months.
Yeah.
And looking back now, I think it was like this perfect time frame, because it's starting to reach into the far future, but it's not too far. Anything you plan within 3 months, you start to lose momentum on that. It's not so, if you choose to do, one thing for 3 months, you start to lose the excitement for it. So at the end of those 3 months, you reevaluate and you replan. And it keeps this like sense of urgency, because 3 months isn't that long. So if you're seeing something on the calendar, you begin to see how quick time goes. And I think doing the 3 month little segment way of planning back then was kind of a big secret for me to keep going. So I'm going to do that now, and I'm kind of excited about it. I know it's little.
No, I love the 3 month thing. That has actually been my recommendation in a way of thinking about lifting, which is I don't like to just start a lifting program to do for infinity.
Right.
Because that's just dumb.
dumb.
You can't do it you eventually get burned out, or it just gets boring and I don't want to do it anymore. But when I get into that mindset of, okay, this is getting kind of stale, I don't really feel like I'm, as engaged, or maybe I'm not making the progress that I want, start looking at something else, and maybe I do some special variation of 531 or Mad Cow, or I have GZCL. Like there's all these different programs you can look at, or I build my own or something like that. And I think about it along the 3 month time span, usually like in 3 distinct 1 month blocks of do 1 month. Usually there's a break at the end of that, and I have that programmed out, and then I progress and do month 2 and month 3. Like 3 months is a great chunk of time. The other thing that I think is great is that when you're kind of struggling, I think it helps to just build up some excitement about something. You've said this many times. Just remind yourself why you wanted to do something in the first place. And if it's art or art related, then I don't know what you find inspiring, but go watch James Gurney paint for a while and talk about what cool thing he's doing. And
absolutely, that's the other thing that I wrote down that I was going to say, is that I've gone off on all these little rabbit trails of random YouTube stuff and TV shows and whatever.
Yeah.
And some of that's been very enjoyable, but it's mostly me putting off getting back to things. And so I feel like this one thing that I've had, this one skill that's kept me interested in art or music for years at a time. It used to be basketball when I was little, or soccer, whatever. Is I take time to just, like, when I start losing interest or I start losing momentum or whatever, I do exactly that. I go back and I just start revisiting the things that I really love. And, if you really love those things the first time, you typically don't lose that. I mean, your interests change a little bit or whatever, but so just today I started going through some old books, looking at some of the art that, originally gets me pretty excited. And I went to little art museum recently with some guys, and that was really exciting. It makes me want to paint more, and watching some James Gurney videos or whatever. Like it all starts coming back. I start building that, that web of all these things that are connected. I start to remember, what I care about so much and what I want to do. So I've just always kind of done that. When I start losing interest, I just start revisiting things, and it all just kind of comes back to me.
Okay.
We should probably wrap this up.
Yeah, well, I feel like we touched on a lot of different ideas there. So yeah, let's wrap this up and maybe try to package that together into some concrete things to actually do. You said we're restarting some challenges for this month, like the rest of October, I guess.
Yeah, you want to go through?
Okay, so specifically, what are we doing exactly?
Okay, we're going to do 5 challenges, okay, for the rest of October. And these are the previous ones, but with a little bit of a twist, because you thought of cool ways to do a twist. Okay, so number one, in the past we did wake up at the same time every day. This time we're going to be go to bed at the same time every day, which sounds less exciting and harder, but I'm ready to try that out. So
my hope is that it will be a bit healthier, because I know that some of us, not me, but you and other people, were waking up at the same time but going to bed at when the hell ever, and sometimes not getting very much sleep. So in an effort to make this a bit healthier, you go to bed at the same time, and then it's sort of implied that you would try to wake up at the same time, but that's not really part of the challenge. Like specifically, you just get to bed at the same time, and then hopefully that kind of leads you to naturally waking up at the same time. But honestly, this feels like the single most important habit out of anything we've done. It may be tied along with don't use your phone, but it's just such a keystone habit that it's just, you got to do that.
Right. So that's number 1. Number 2, you're going to give something up. We did this before. This one's the same, no twist. You gave up buying things, which was kind of crazy. I gave up YouTube. It's just whatever seems to be, causing issues or seeming to get in the way of what you really want. See if you can go without it for the rest of the month. So I'm going to be giving up YouTube again.
I am going to give up. It's hard to make this like a simple thing. I'm going to give up visiting websites during work hours that aren't directly related to the thing that I'm working on. So, I can look up something on Stack Overflow or whatever, but I can't visit NPR or CNN or Hacker News or any like news site or anything unrelated to the thing that I am supposed to be doing. I actually think that's going to be really hard.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Okay. Good job. Okay, number 3. It's going to be a fitness yes or no. So this is taking the place of the pull-up challenge, where we used to do pull-ups every day, and you would mark, yes, you did them, or no, you didn't do them. This one will be, did you do your fitness thing for the day?
Yeah.
And if you worked out, great, you get to check yes. If you had a rest day scheduled, then that still counts. That means yes, you did it. If you
forgot to rest, then you screwed up.
Yes. So whatever you planned, whatever was the right thing to do for your fitness thing that day, you mark yes or no.
Okay. That's and just 3. As a little asterisk there, the kind of minimum thing, maximum thing, I think is really important. It's going to be a little harder to track with the pull-ups. It's very simple. You would literally write down minimum number of pull-ups. If you're going for runs or you're doing weight training or some yoga or whatever, it's a little fuzzier, but I still think it's a super key idea. Is have this kind of minimum level of, this is what I can do if it's kind of a phone it in day, and then I can go try hard mode if I need to. Just bake that into whatever you're thinking about. Anyway, okay, yes. Number 3.
Okay, number 4 is the 2-minute challenge. So we did this. It was, you do something for 2 minutes every day. And no twist on that. We're going to do that same thing again. 2 minutes
I'm
on
literally
something.
going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to play piano again, and I'm going to play the same freaking song because I haven't played it all and I forgot it. So
I'm gonna I'm gonna do drawing because I haven't been drawing at all since I started painting. So I'm gonna do
okay.
drawing for my 2 minutes.
Okay.
And then number 5 is our favorite. Is you have to leave your phone plugged in. Okay, a slight asterisk to that. You don't have to leave it plugged in. You have to leave it in one place. In other words, you can't use it if it leaves that place, right? So
And you're adjusting this because we don't want to ruin people's phone batteries. Is
because
that
we
the
said that and people were like, "Oh, your phone's going to explode. You're an idiot." So for all of those people, yeah, you don't have to leave it plugged in. You can just leave it in one spot next to the charger or whatever. But
okay?
the idea is that it stays in one place and you don't
Yeah.
go sit on the couch with it. You don't walk around with it. You don't do anything with it. It stays in one place. And if you're driving, it's got to stay. Well, you shouldn't use it while you're driving.
Right. Right.
But okay, so I go to work. I have to plug it in or leave it in one spot, and I cannot take it with me. I can't use it when it leaves that spot.
Yeah.
This,
Yeah.
please do this. If you do none of the other ones, just do this. Makes a big difference.
And just to those people, I don't know about iPhone, but for Android, you can usually set a charge limit. You can say only
Yeah.
charge the battery to 70%. Not every phone OS, sometimes it has to be rooted, blah, 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 but sometimes it's a thing you can do. And that will make your phone battery last a million times longer.
Yeah, I think it does that automatically.
Okay.
Also, our phones didn't explode, and we did it for a moment.
Yeah.
What?
I mean, mine's, yeah.
Okay, so that's number 5. We're going to do all of them. Feel free to do them on your own time or whatever. But in our Discord, we have a cool little spreadsheet, which would be cool if somebody updated. We have a cool spreadsheet that we can keep track of everything in the
Or
Discord.
mark it
If you
down
want to
in
use that.
yourself. That's totally legit too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So go to bed at the same time every night. Do 2 minutes of a thing that you think is cool. Only 2 minutes, like literally 2 minutes.
Give something up.
Give something up.
Workout or fitness thing.
Yeah.
Yes or no for the day. And then the phone.
Oh, right. And if you're not into all 5, highly recommend the phone and the sleep. And if you're not even into that, the sleep. I think that would actually be the most important. I think that's the keystone habit to everything.
Okay, so doing all 5 of those challenges will be part of me and you two to try and get back on track. Is there anything else? I'm gonna also do the 3-month planning thing. I'm just really excited about that.
Yeah.
To help me kind of think bigger picture and look into the future a little bit more, and I don't know, just help me set deadlines and stuff and keep up with things. I mean, it's kind of personal, but
for me, yeah, I think it's going to be get yourself excited about that thing. Convince self-destruct you that on the wagon you is actually awesome and exciting and is going to do all these things. Like spend your time watching YouTube or listening to podcast people that you think are really cool and inspiring and get you excited about doing something. Like build some hype.
Yeah, I would say that's almost well, not a separate thing, but it's another thing, is revisit the things that make you really care about the stuff that you actually really care about. Yeah, try and get excited about stuff.
Cool. Okay. I think that's it.
All right. See you next week.